Good afternoon, everybody. Early happy Thanksgiving. My name is Kevin Brady. I'm privileged to call myself Government Affairs Director here at LIBOR, coming to you live or live to recording from our new headquarters in Melville. I want to thank you for joining LIBOR for this informative webinar with our guest, Risa Henderson. Risa is the Chief Housing Services Officer for New York City Department of Social Services Human Resource Administration. Under her leadership, the Housing Services Administration, HSA for short, delivers a full continuum of programs that connect New Yorkers experiencing homelessness or housing instability to safe, stable, affordable homes. HSA is comprised of 4 core program areas. There's supportive housing specialized services, housing supply, rental assistance administration, and stakeholder outreach and engagement. Ms. Henderson oversees initiatives that expand access to affordable housing, coordinate placements for vulnerable populations, partner with landlords and housing providers, and strengthen rental assistance operations. Today, we're talking about statewide CityFHEPS program. This is a critical part of the efforts in the city's plan to fight homelessness and eviction prevention as part of a supplement. CityFHEPS is New York City's largest rent subsidy program. In fiscal year 2025, DSS helped nearly 32,000 individuals obtain permanent homes or remain stably housed using CityFHEPS. That really demonstrates the program's role as a cornerstone of the city's homelessness prevention strategy. This important rental assistance program helps New York City residents access and afford housing not only within the city, but an important point we're going to make here today, if it helps them throughout New York State. Today, we can learn more about how the program works, who it serves, and what housing professionals just like yourselves need to know more to assist the clients that I know you're proud to help every day. Welcome, Risa.
Good afternoon, and thank you, Kevin, so much for that wonderful introduction. My name is Risa Henderson, and I am the Chief Housing Officer at the Human Resources Administration here in New York City. And I'm delighted to be here to provide an overview of our statewide voucher, CityFHEPS. Today, I plan to walk through the basic operational understanding of the program, and I hope that this really encourages folks to get more information and participate ultimately in our voucher program. Can we please pull up the slides? Okay. The Department of Social Services, DSS, is comprised of administrative units of the New York City Housing Resources Administration and the Department of Homeless Services. Through integrated management in DSS, HRA and DHS client services and benefits are provided more seamlessly and effectively. We leverage shared services and functions across our agencies, which supports better day-to-day management by way of an integrated mission across our combined agencies. Our shared mission, 1, is to provide streamlined access to social services, 2, addressing homelessness and housing instability where possible, and 3, creating economic stability for low-income, vulnerable New Yorkers. The HRA is the largest social service agency in the country, and we manage over $3 million low-income and vulnerable New Yorkers by way of 12 major benefit programs to those in need of essential benefits such as food assistance, rental assistance, just to name a couple. The Department of Homeless Services works to prevent homelessness where possible, address street homelessness, provide temporary shelter and support services to exit shelter clients to permanent housing in their communities. HSA, as you heard, Housing Support Administration, delivers a full continuum of programs that connect New Yorkers experiencing homelessness. So we are the office here at HRA that administers the CityFHEPS voucher program. Next slide, please. Okay, so a little background on CityFHEPS. CityFHEPS is City Fighting Homelessness and Eviction Prevention Supplement. It is a rental assistance program that helps New Yorkers living on low income search and pay for housing anywhere in the state. CityFHEPS has been around since 2018, and we're thrilled that CityFHEPS is now portable. In the last few years, we've made a subsidy portable to really help support folks reconnect to their home communities or to have options to relocate in the state. There are three cornerstones of the program that folks should be aware of. One, monthly supplement payments from New York City Department of Social Services covers the rent portion of the tenant's lease. Two, landlords participating in the program receives the first 3 months rent supplement upfront at lease up. And three, monthly rental assistance payments from DSS could go up to 5 years. The program is a 5-year program. With CityFHEPS, tenants typically pay 30% of their total income towards rent, and DSS will pay the remaining costs of rent. It's a really great program, and as you heard before, there are over 60,000 folks currently enrolled in the program and getting support from the city. Next slide, please. Okay, so I hope today to give you some basic understanding of the lease-up flow. It involves a few steps. Shopping letter, finding an apartment, we conduct a walkthrough. There's a landlord package that is required for every application. There's a package review and approval process that happens for the rental flow, as well as the last step of a key exchange and move-in of our clients. So I'm going to walk you through these milestones and statuses, so to give you a better understanding of how the program and the operation works. Next slide. Okay, shopping letter. Shopping letter is the agency's issued notification to those that are pre-qualifying for the subsidy. Is a way that clients understand their eligibility and allows them to start looking for housing. So folks in shelter and folks in the community who qualify, they have what we call a shopping letter in hand that gives them an idea of what they qualify for. It lists the documents needed from the landlord or broker to continue or to participate in the CityFHEPS eligibility assessment, and it directs landlords and brokers to really understand the financial incentives available. So there are many financial incentives available to the CityFHEPS program. Those are hosted on our website. But a shopping letter is an important part of the process that signals to clients to begin shopping in the market, to begin looking for units that can meet their rent amounts. Next slide. Rental amounts. I think this is a very important part of the process. CityFHEPS rents outside of New York City are set to local county standards. For the example of Nassau and Suffolk County, since we're talking to folks in these areas, this is the household size and bedroom size limits. And it really gives you an understanding of what the maximum rents are allowable. It's important for those who are interested in participating in the program to understand that local county standards do play a part in the review process. We do check as part of the rental application to make sure that the rents are reasonable, according to local standard. One of the cool features of the program as it relates to rent is we have the ability for landlords participating in the program to sign up for electronic fund transfers or EFTs to get direct deposit for the rent portion that the city makes on behalf of the household. Next slide, please. Okay, so I talked a little bit about the shopping letter. I talked a little bit about the rent. As part of our rental process, it's required that we conduct to ensure that the conditions are safe and that there is a basic standard met for livability. There is a walkthrough that is required for every lease up. If it is for a client who's residing in shelter, obviously the provider who is managing the client's case will coordinate and organize the walkthrough with the landlord or the landlord's representative, utilizing a very comprehensive apartment review checklist. This is really done to determine and to ensure that the conditions are standard, basic standards. So heat, hot water, working appliances, all of the basic things that are required for a regular lease up we do a walkthrough and we ensure that households are able to move in as scheduled. Two, this is a very important point for apartments in the Nassau, Suffolk County area. In-person inspections are required, but for all other counties and localities outside of the Nassau, Rockland, Suffolk, or Westchester areas, we allow for a virtual inspection by our provider staff. Obviously, because of location, that's clear, but in the instance of Nassau and Suffolk, we will be requiring in-person inspections. Another thing to note is that for all areas outside of New York City, we do not conduct any pre-clearance. That is the only difference in the statewide version of the CityFHEPS program. Obviously, the codes are subject to that local municipality, so we are not in the process of conducting those, but a virtual in-person inspection is required. Next slide. Okay, the landlord package. The landlord package is the combination of the basic financial as well as other documentation that is required in order for us to approve the rental application and thereby approving the move-in. It gathers landlord rental unit and payment information. It's completed after a lease has been signed with a client. So in this scenario, the client has already viewed the apartment. The client has already accepted the apartment. There has already been a walkthrough conducted and you have passed that inspection. And this is the stage here where the lease has been completed and the package now is being submitted to the agency for approval. The package consists of 3 sections. It's a document required checklist. It is the rental unit, utilities, property owner, and payment information, and obviously the landlord agreement to participate in the program. There are a few important tips that we love telling folks about to ensure that we can mitigate or reduce processing time. Filling out these packages are is a very integral part of the process and is required that accuracy is certain before we approve any application. So a few reminders here is ensuring that the landlord or the owner's name matches exactly what's written on a deed. In the instance of an LLC being in the name or Inc. being in the name, it's very important that this type of detail is included in the submission of the landlord package. Also, a key note to remember is we need to ensure that broker's information and all the information that we need in order to process the application and issue benefits and bonuses or incentives, they're completed accurately and completely. And we're providing here just a simple QR information here about the landlord package, but it's a very basic submission. Next slide. Package review. So the landlord package is submitted. We have the rental package here at DSS, and this is a stage where processing happens and the client is linked, the lease is signed, the provider is waiting for information about the approval so that they can get to the next step. This is a step where my internal team here at DSS is performing property ownership confirmation. They're reviewing every single part of the rental application, just like you would do in a mortgage application. And we're making sure that the documentation provided by the landlord and the client are aligned, they're accurate, they're complete. And we perform any of the reviews that's required to verify that information. Key point, bringing you back to the local county standards. It's important to note that we check on rent reasonableness as part of the process. We need to ensure that it's falling within the range of your local standard. This is a step that we do during the review process for the application. Next slide. Okay, key exchange. The application is approved. The provider is informed that the application is approved. So this is a stage where we expect that the provider is now liaising with the landlord or the landlord's designee to inform you, one, that the application has been approved, so the process can, resume, and all of the arrangements around move-in should be made. We expect that our tenants are provided with keys to the unit that they were shown, the unit that was approved. So the lease that was submitted must match the unit that they're given the keys for, that they will ultimately reside. And rental assistance checks are given to the landlord and or the broker at the key exchange. Next slide. Oh, next steps. So I talked a little bit about the mechanics of how the program operates. This is where I hope we get some interest in the CityFHEPS program. As I said, we have done a lot of work over the years to really engage landlords across the city, across the state. We have, we're the second largest subsidy in the country, behind NYCHA Section 8. So we have a lot of interest and participation. If anyone on the call is interested in getting to know more information about the program, or even offering units that we would want to perhaps begin some conversations on, we always direct interested folks to contact our public engagement unit, home support at 212-331-6240 to show any interest. We also share the landlord flyer with individuals and organizations that might be interested in the program. And we're asking you to partner with us to raise awareness about the program in Long Island. Like I said, we have a very, very high enrollment, and we're looking to make sure that this opportunity, especially for folks in shelter as well as low-income New Yorkers, the city has a very low vacancy rate, right? And we want to make sure that we're continuing to bring options to our clients so that they can make the connection back to their communities and to permanent housing. Statewide CityFHEPS is a great tool to do that, and we're just really excited to be here today to talk to folks. So hopefully we are able to generate some interest in the program. Next slide. If you want to learn more about public engagement or statewide CityFHEPS, I would offer these QRs and redirect you to our agency's websites. On the Department of Homeless Services, HRA, and DSS, there is a ton of information available about what CityFHEPS is, FAQs to help landlords and brokers navigate the process, and we are committed to making sure that this, we continue to invest in this program. Obviously, it's subject to funding, but in recent years, this program has really grown significantly, and it's because of landlords like you and organizations like you partnering with us to really bring this information to folks that could benefit on either side of the aisle. I will stop here and say if there are any questions. I think this is the time of the webinar that we will open them up to any general questions that folks may have about the program, with the understanding that we're not able to discuss specific cases or specific client examples due to confidentiality reasons, but I will answer as many questions as I can.
Thanks so much, Risa. And yes, to your point, this is a statewide program that also happens to straddle the very region that our members are always working in, Queens, Nassau, and Suffolk County. And I know it's been a big priority to raise awareness on Long Island about the program and about its success. I will say, as a housing advocate that is lucky to get up every day and work on behalf of these members who are watching, this is exactly the kind of program that I know when we lobby, we're encouraging lawmakers and policymakers to think more about things that can actually keep people from ever being in a place where they're potentially going to be on the streets, and try and save them from that spot, because that's what keeps everyone going in the midst of the very real housing crisis that we know we're all dealing with. I did drop in the chat for everyone. There's the general govaffairs@lirealtor.com email as well, because if specific questions do come up you can't raise in a forum like this, in addition to the QR codes that show for the public engagement unit and all the other resources that RISA has laid out, we're always happy to connect you and be those facilitators, because that's us doing our job and to help RISA and her team do theirs. So let's pivot over to a couple questions. And before we go to those, I just wanted to pose to RISA, in all the experience that you've had with this program, you've covered so much with this, but do you find that there's specific areas where there just seems to be certain places where folks get hung up? You talked about making sure that page 6 was finished. Sometimes it's about the clarity of the name. Do you feel like just talking about that for one more
Yeah,
minute? We up that point?
that's a great question. Thank you so much for that. I think the point of us stressing about processing is we want to expedite lease up, right? It's everybody's goal, to client, landlord, as well as the agency. We're all committed to executing the approval as quickly as we can. What we have seen in our experience, there have been a lot of minor errors that have delayed the ability to approve these packages. So we just always do a lot of training and reminding to our landlord community about the importance of accuracy. We want, when leases are signed, to honor them as much as we can. And any change, any delay just significantly, delays the process, right? There's another lease signing that has to happen now because the package has been delayed because of errors and back and forth. So anything that we can do to educate folks about what's required is where we put our energies, because it's everybody's goal to have folks, bridge back to the communities as quickly as we can.
Thank you. Now, I want to turn to some of the questions we have from the members. As a reminder to everybody, if we get specific, I'll try to generalize as much as possible to protect everybody involved, including yourselves. One question that I know others had in advance was something like, is there a list of landlords that accept it, right? Is there a resource place where folks can go and say, oh, I can either type something in or pull up a list and I can search it manually? How might folks get started on that process to just check out which landlords were engaged or involved that you already have relationships with?
Do you mean specifically from your area, or is this?
However you package it. So I think this member was asking about their area, but it may depend on the jurisdiction. So if you want to talk a little bit about that generally.
Yeah, I mean, there are a whole slew of ways that we get landlords to participate into the program, right? We have our shelter providers who have we have contracted with, that have staff, and their job as housing specialists is to really work the real estate market and provide options to their households, right? So that they can help clients navigate this very complex and specific journey. If it is a household member in the community, we have services in the community by way of Home Base, which is our contracted vendor that provide support to households. The landlord community it ranges from small mom and pop landlords all the way to management companies, right? So it's a very wide range. What we have done in the past is really, when we first launched CityFHEPS, done a lot of messaging and education on it. Every opportunity we get to engage landlords who participate is an opportunity for us to keep them in the program, as well as to advertise for us. So I would say, if you're interested in becoming a landlord, the best resource that we can provide to you to help navigate that would be the public engagement unit. This is a staff at HRA. Their job is to really engage landlords, so they will be able to, give you a more in-depth walkthrough, help you understand the benefits and the incentives, and they will also be like a resource to help you navigate the many different lanes of community and shelter.
Thanks, Risa. Let's dive into some more of these questions. So I have had a couple folks ask about, well, I see when sometimes clients switch between programs, right? Whether they're asking about, I've had 2 CityFHEPS switch to FHEPS last week after inspection of apartment passing. Is this something that will be more common? More generally, maybe this could also be a question about maybe when clients either have different programs they're involved in or switching between programs and trying to, sometimes people may need help trying to troubleshoot those resources for their clients.
Yeah. I would say, yes, there are many other subsidies. CityFHEPS is our biggest one and the most famous one and utilized one. But yes, clients have the choice of changing subsidy, and there's eligibility requirements for subsidy as well. So circumstances change, your eligibility may change as well. If there are specific questions around that, I would say send them to PEU, right? If you have clients in the program that you have challenges about what's happening with their subsidy or change of subsidy, or there's a question about their eligibility, we're going to extend this offer to you guys to send it to them, and we'll triage and we'll try to support you best.
Thank you. And actually, that pivots right into another question we have from an individual, which is something that I've heard people ask about, which might seem like a baseline question, but I think is really critical to remind people that someone may currently have a landlord-tenant relationship and they're as a client becoming engaged with CityFHEPS or other programs. Of course, a tenant can currently be in the middle of a landlord-tenant relationship through a lease or some other kind of arrangement they have, and could then become engaged as part of CityFHEPS, correct?
That's correct. Because CityFHEPS is available to the community, the core foundation of it is to prevent eviction where possible, right? It's in the name, right? So we want to make sure that folks understand that it could be shelter or it could be community. So yes, if CityFHEPS is going to be used to help stay that eviction and to provide the rental support that household qualifies for, definitely they could come on at any point in their lease.
Excellent. I know that goes critical to the very mission of CityFHEPS, so I'm glad we got that question. That was a good question to ask. Make sure people realize this isn't about starting from scratch or starting a new client relationship with a landlord, but in fact about pre-existing ones as well, to avoid their housing becoming further at risk.
Yes.
So another question I had was about folks receiving calls from agents where the broker compensation changed during the process. So what might a broker do if this happens to them, or other situations where maybe the compensation has to change because of some of the factors involved? Your team works to help troubleshoot the best we can?
Yeah, the provider staff in our home-based office would support the navigation of that as far as like the processing and the issuance of the benefits and the incentives. That's where my team comes in. But I would say, as a rule of thumb, if there's any nuance into your incentives, you should be working with your client household or our contracted provider staff. They will be the best resource to help you update records, update the package to get it to us in a way that we can respond to it.
Another question we had, which unfortunately it does occur sometimes, where maybe a tenant for lots of reasons wasn't able to pay any further what their portion was of the responsibility. To step back, because this person was going to ask a question about the eviction process and how that might be involved. If the client who is already receiving the benefits and getting that subsidy and support, if they're unable to pay, is there an engagement from your team if a flag is raised by one end or the other to say, hey, I need help, perhaps I need to have my financial considerations reconsidered, or you know what, that this relationship has gone south? How do you intervene to try and stop that situation from going back towards an eviction and potential houselessness?
Yeah, so CityFHEPS is a preventive eviction tool, as well as a bridging back shelter residents to the community. What will happen in those instances, we direct clients to access HRA, which is our online mobile solution for issuing their benefits, which is connected to CityFHEPS. Rental assistance connected to emergency benefits. We will ask them to go in there and put in a modification and to work with our agency in addressing any specific issues regarding their rent amounts or changes that they have to make.
Right, and that's a great point to underscore for folks too. Just like we talked about, if someone had a pre-existing landlord-tenant relationship and then The whole point is to avoid them from being evicted, from being in a potential where they could lose their home, that this program can come in. People's situations change. We'd love if it changes for the better. Sometimes they change for the worse and the more uncomfortable. And that's where maybe the subsidy has to change. And this is where folks are encouraged to get involved, change their numbers on their side, work with your team to help mitigate that situation. Because the whole point is to avoid eviction in the first place, correct? All right. Another one just about the process, big picture here. And of course, every situation, let's go with the caveat, look right into the camera. Every situation is individual and specific. But generally, what is the turnaround time for approval once they're submitted successfully?
Yeah, if packages are submitted with minimal errors and minimal back and forth, it takes about 3 weeks for an approval to happen, or on average, right? There are cases that can be done quicker because the back and forth is just doesn't exist. We do that in maybe half the time. But on average, typically it's about 3 weeks to approval once we receive an application.
Okay. And then is the renewal an annual process? How does that work from the year to year?
Yes, it is an annual renewal. CityFHEPS leaseholders sign 1-year leases, and yes, it is an annual renewal process that they have to go through the agency to renew the benefits that will renew the rent portion to the landlord. So all this is initiated by the client.
Okay. One member asking, Letitia, is asking about do y'all keep a list or some other kind of resource for realtors to sign up to actively engage and affirmatively opt in to be a part of your process?
No, what we would ask here is if you have units that you would like us to put in the pool of considerations for our households, send them to the PE office. We will work with our shelter operators to make viewings or associated viewings to those units in a way that connects households to the lease signing part of the process. So if you have units you want for us to consider, please send them to PEU. They will make sure electronically our providers get them and that you can have viewings and begin the process of linking households and leasing them up.
And then Risa, a lot of I know my members have been confused and concerned about the changes that took place because of the FAIR Act in New York City and how that affects the compensation generally. So I know one person had asked, now with the FAIR Act going into effect for New York City, will CityFHEPS have a process to split the payment check amongst the two brokers on the transaction? Because currently one check goes to the landlord's broker only. Without having to get too much into the specifics, your team has obviously been trying to engage with, just like federally and statewide, there's always programs that are changing. There's always laws and regulations that are changing. So when folks have questions about how all the pieces are moving around them, besides engaging directly with your office, is this kind of a topic that's come up for you recently because of some of the headlines? As I know, it's always about sometimes FAQs and how do we separate the fears and the facts?
Yeah, I mean, this is a shifting landscape, so a lot is changing quickly. What I would say is that our shelter providers and our home-based offices, they're trained to have the latest information that we have about our subsidy and operation. I would also say that everything is, contingent on funding, and that's a federal piece, right? We don't know the landscape, but we're in, but we do know that the expectation is that providers are knowledgeable and they're the resource to help the landlord community with a day-to-day operation. My office will help with the processing and addressing more general processing and policy changes. But the best resource for individual lease ups would be the housing specialist or the client if they're in a community who engaged you.
Okay. And I do remind folks when there's more specific questions that we could help always feedback over. That's why we have the govaffairs@lirealtor.com email as well. And we can help with troubleshooting or highlighting some of those more specific cases when these things do come up. Because as Risa was pointing out, the landscape is always changing around us. You all as members are very much aware of that. Just like you move between jurisdictions, we're all in the state of New York, but sometimes you're doing things in the city, sometimes you're doing things in Nassau, Suffolk County, the townships all have regulations. At least here from this perspective, you would always try to encourage folks to go back to the PEU, the public engagement unit, correct?
Yeah. if not the housing specialist first line of defense after linkage and lease up during the application process. If they're not able to help, we will direct you to go to PU.
Okay. Um, let's see, I'm trying to, oh, see, just to recap this one more time, this is pretty broad, but I know some folks are always trying to make sure they have the differences in their head. And the whole point is to inform our membership. Just to remind folks of what some of the differences are between CityFHEPS and programs like Section 8.
Yeah, so CityFHEPS is a city funded program. Section 8 is a federally funded program operated by NYCHA and others. But as far as CityFHEPS is a 5-year program, as I mentioned. We have an annual recertification for it, and it's really aimed at addressing and preventing eviction where possible, right? It's used to really help get our shelter clients back into their communities and return to self-sufficiency. It is not Section 8. It is CityFHEPS. Is a little bit different. I welcome you to go to the website to understand the eligibility criteria for CityFHEPS. But in a nutshell, this is a very important tool that we use to really connect low-income New Yorkers to rental assistance that they otherwise would not, be able to access or qualify for.
Thanks, Risa. And I always say to all of our members too, sometimes there's going to be questions like that because you're trying to juggle so much on your plate. And those of us like Risa and I, we live this stuff every day, but we're always working towards the public benefit. And that includes both your clients and you as members who want to serve your clients. So when you have questions sometimes on your end, hey, where's the best link? Where are some of the places Risa was talking about? You can always email us at Government Affairs and we'll provide you with some of those links. So you have them for your individual inbox to share for you, for your brokerage, for your office to share with your agents. A few more questions as we get ready to wrap up here. This was a question that because people do think of this with their experience with other programs. Does your program require do you say spot checks or check-ins on certain locations after the approval process? So say either midway through the lease or once a space has been approved, that doesn't have to be something that's revisited, correct?
We expect that you follow your local Department of Building rules and expectations for safety and habitability, but we don't do any inspections after moving.
And by the way, Risa, a lot of this is very, very appreciative feedback and talking about this being informative. So we're always happy to get that positive feedback live and while we're going with this. So I thank you all for that. Another person was just asking, and this is great because this is what we want to hear when folks want to engage with landlords who might be hesitant or maybe discouraged with past programs. And our members oftentimes are reminding them that A, this is our jobs and our responsibilities, and B, this is something that's good for the community as a whole. There are resources that your office and the other departments that you work with that sometimes provide maybe little packages for landlords besides the package itself, but ways to either, I'm sure you're doing webinars or other resources you have that encourage landlords to engage that if you have some of those, we're happy to provide them with our members as well, because they can give them to landlords. It's just one more thing that's part of their work. A lot of our members, to their credit, are also very civically engaged. They're civic leaders in their community, or they work with landlords on lots of programs. So I take it you have other things that you could provide us with. That,
Yeah, education is key in really getting this word out about the program, and the credibility of the program is important to us as well, right? So we can definitely share with you other material. I will again point to our website. We have a whole section on statewide CityFHEPS, and it allows to, gives you the FAQs to help you talk through some of the concerns that people may have, or the things that we heard in the past that we know we needed to really stand on, to be clear on. So we can definitely, Kevin, share with you material that we have that could be helpful to your members.
Thanks, Risa. And to all of us folks who are watching, whether they're engaged with us live or they're going to follow up this with the recording later, I'll work with the tech team to make sure that all those links, we can always update them or provide new ones as people ask further questions. The whole point of having a living document besides this webinar when we post it is to make sure the resources are there for you to follow up, or say in a few months when you remember this conversation or you heard about it, to go back there and get some of those resources, because the most I won't speak for Risa, but I can also say for myself, having been both on the government side and now on this side, I know that we feel successful when folks don't have to reach to us because we made sure our resources are available to them when they can do the follow-ups and then you come back with specific questions. So we'll try as much as we can to have all that for you all. One more kind of general question that I know came from a specific place for one member was saying, if the price point for one bedroom unit is a couple $100s, say higher in any particular building that a client was interested in applying for, does the CityFHEPS program augment to the amount allotted, or does it stick to this is the baseline for that area?
Local, amounts. Yeah, so we try to stay within that. As I mentioned, we want the rent to be reasonable. Again, this is something that, is important to us, right? We want to make sure that we're not inflating market rent as well. So we try to live within those local standards as much as we can. It's important to note also that any change of a unit identification has to go through the agency as well, because we want to ensure that we are paying for the right unit and that the unit meets the standard.
And then to remind everybody, this recording is going to be posted for folks to come back to. Don't feel like if you didn't take your notes on this, forever hold your peace. In addition to us having the resources and always being able to reach back to Risa and her team, you'll also be able to come back to this recording of the webinar and follow up on some of this. So as we wrap up here, Risa, do you have any final thoughts or items that you want to make sure our members are involved in? Otherwise, you're free to crib from my saying, which is always when in doubt, reach out.
Yes, so I do want to say thank you so much for the opportunity to speak to your members today. This was really awesome, and I hope that we've been able to give you a general enough overview of the citywide CityFHEPS program, the statewide CityFHEPS program, in a way to encourage you to participate. Just like, folks that are stably housed, just as folks who are stably housed wanting to have the ability to relocate in the state, we saw that as something important for our households as well. Folks facing instability should also have the opportunity to move outside of the city to locations that they deem appropriate for their family. So the CityFHEPS program is a tool that gets us to that end. So I look forward to working with you, Kevin, and the rest of the team on more information, more education, more marketing to hopefully get interest and participation and supply from your board.
I'm going to put on my broken glasses one more time to say thank you to everybody at home. Happy Thanksgiving. And this is an example to thank Risa for your time and for all your team's time. This is an example of the very programming that we advocate for when we do lobbying and engage with our members, when we talk to lawmakers, is how many programs as possible and ways as possible that can help our members obviously run a business, be successful in terms of your own livelihood, and make sure that we confront the housing crisis responsibly, which means having programs that try and do the best we can to prevent people who are going through sometimes the worst part of their life from being in any situations any worse, and that includes their housing insecurity. So Risa, thank you for the work that you do, and I want to thank all my members who joined us today. And remember, you can always follow up with us at govaffairs@lirealtor.com. Thank you very much.
Thank you.